Hi, Chris from Dynojet here. Today we're going to install a Power Commander 5 with fuel and ignition control on this 2014 Indian Chief. To get started, we're going to go ahead and pop off both of the side covers on both sides. And we're going to remove the seat. Next, we're going to remove the fuel tank, starting with the gauge cluster at the top. We're going to unplug the fuel pump electrical connector and the fuel line from the top of the tank. We're going to disconnect the vent tube here at the rear. We'll remove the two bolts at the rear of the tank. And now we can remove the tank and set it aside. Our next step, we're going to remove the airbox cover, and then we'll remove the air filter. Now that the filter's out, we're going to remove this air filter backing plate. Next, we're going to loosen the BCM. Under the seat here, we can find our connector for our stock O2 sensor. We're going to unplug the stock O2 sensor. We're going to plug one of our supplied O2 optimizers into the bike stock harness in place of the stock O2 sensor. With the rear O2 sensor unplugged, we should have a nice space here where we can route our Power Commander harness branch with the injector leads and the coil leads. We're going to route that right through here in front of the battery. Probably the trickiest part of this installation is routing this harness branch with the crank position sensors down to the bottom of the motorcycle. This pair of connectors is going to need to route right in between the rear shock and the battery. You have to pass one connector through at a time. Next you'll pass through a hole at the bottom of the frame, and you'll go all the way to the bottom of the motorcycle. So when we route the harness down to the bottom of the motorcycle, we're going to be extra careful not to route the harness next to really any hot or moving parts. In particular, this exhaust crossover tube. We're going to want to stay as clear of that as possible, and we're going to tie the harness up right alongside these hydraulic lines here to keep it from interfering or touching anything that's going to get very hot. So I've used a zip tie here and here to keep the harness clear of the exhaust and routed right alongside the stock electrical wiring and the hydraulic lines. Okay, so over here at the bottom right hand side of the bike, we're going to find our stock crank position sensor connectors. We're going to unplug those, and we're going to plug the Power Commander in line with the stock crank sensor connectors. And again, we'll need to make sure to tie these connectors up so that they're clear of this hot exhaust pipe here. So here you can see I've tied the harness up to the stock wiring to make sure that we don't come in contact with our hot exhaust here. Next, we'll need to plug in our Power Commander harness branch with the injector leads, the coil leads, and then the gray wire for the throttle position sensor. We'll start up here at the top of the throttle bodies with the front and rear fuel injectors. The stock injector clip has a little red tab. We'll need to lift those up, and then we can squeeze the connector while we pull up on it to unlock it from the injector. We're going to plug our Power Commander harness leads with the yellow colored wires in line with the rear fuel injector and the stock connector. Then we'll unplug the front cylinder fuel injector and the Power Commander harness leads with the orange colored wires will go in line with the front fuel injector. Next, we're going to route our coil connectors. The Power Commander leads with the green and blue colored wires will route down to the ignition coil. So we're going to unplug the stock connector for the ignition coil, and we're going to plug our Power Commander in line with that. And next we're going to route the single unterminated gray wire right in between the cylinders and to our air box. Now that we've passed the gray wire over towards the air box, we're going to push the gray wire through the grommet on the back side of the air box where the stock wiring goes through. And we're going to follow along the stock wiring till we come to the connector here for the throttle body servo. We're going to use our supplied posi tap to attach the gray wire from the Power Commander harness to the stock orange wire with yellow tracer on the throttle body servo. We will take the gray nut on the posi tap and put the stock wire through the slot on that gray nut. Next, we'll thread the pointed end of the posi tap onto the gray nut. We'll remove the red nut from the posi tap. We'll slide that over the gray wire. We'll insert the gray wire into the body of the posi tap, and we'll thread the red nut down on top of it. And that should clamp the gray wire to the stock orange-yellow wire. We'll need to install another O2 optimizer on our front O2 sensor connection. We'll unplug the stock front O2 sensor here, and we'll plug the supplied Dynojet O2 optimizer onto the harness in place of the stock O2 sensor. The last thing we'll need to do before we start reassembling the bike is attach our Power Commander's ground wire and secure the module. We're going to take the Power Commander's ground wire with the small ring lug, and we're going to secure that to the negative terminal of the bike's battery. And we're going to store the Power Commander module below the stock harness for the BCM. After that, we can reassemble the bike.